Hello everyone. Well, it seems like it's been a while since I've made a video for you, even though I did one last week, but it wasn't a talking one, because I've had a bit of a cold for the last 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm feeling much better now. It was also my birthday a few days ago, and my family got me this, which I'm very excited about. So I thought I would show it to you today. Now it's pretty big, so it's kind of hard to fit it all on the screen, but we'll do our best, okay? So this is an unboxing, but I've already opened it because it came as a gift. I didn't want to say, wait, I can't open my gift unless I have my camera. So I thought I'd open it for you as well right now. So this is the Apple book, which is a book that Apple published. It is not a computer or an electronic device. It is an actual physical book. And it comes in this very nice box, well protected, simple white container. And it is quite heavy and quite slippery. There we go. Okay, so this is the book. It's wrapped up. Let me remove this box. Get it out of the way. Give us some more room. Okay. So I'm going to turn it this way for now. It comes wrapped in this kind of bluish white heavy stock paper. These 2 tabs here on the side. These fold back. And you have this little flap that folds like that. And here's the book itself. So you can see the paper that the book is wrapped in features artwork of various Apple products. We have some iPods here. You have the Apple Watch, MacBook Air, iPhone. We have a mouse up here, another Apple Watch here, and then some of the iPod versions seen on the edge, an iPod case, the keyboard. We have one of the old iMac screens, earbuds, remote control, the Power Mac G5 case, the Apple Pencil, and another iPod. So it's a nice little collection of Apple products there, kind of a preview of what's inside. So here's the main attraction of the book. It has an embossed Apple logo on the front, blind embossed. And then it also has on the spine the words, designed by Apple in California. blind embossed there as well. So I am going to turn it around this way so you can see what's going on. I think I'm zoomed out. There's a little bit more I can zoom. There we go. So I'm not going to go through this book page by page, but I'll cover a nice significant portion of it. This is basically a book that catalogs Apple's design work from the late 90s to the 2000s. Basically starting with the iMac and moving on from there. There's a little bit of introductory material here, which I haven't read yet, but it's maybe 10 paragraphs. We have a listing of all the products. If you wanted to skip to one right away. We have the chronology of when these products appeared. So it starts in 98 and goes through 2015. And so the first image is the iMacs. Making sure I would skip a page. I don't think so. These were the product that caused the craze of the semi-transparent colored plastic product. And we started out with the Bondi blue one. That was the first one that was introduced. And then soon afterwards, the other colors appeared. I have a Bondi blue one actually sitting right below this desk. I keep it there because it fits right in the corner. So I have a collection of quite a few old Apple products. So, yep, this is the one here. A little bit worse for wear. I got it from a school that no longer wanted it. So instead of throwing it away, I found it a home. These were immensely popular computers. I got one for my parents, and that was kind of the first computer that they ever used. So here's what the screen looked like. Massively powerful. Basically, vacuum tube. That if you're not careful can hurt you or even kill you with an electrical charge. Nothing to mess around with. So here we have some details of the handle as well as the ventilation. And then you have the foot that folded back on the bottom. So all of this bright color was definitely something that was not common in computer products at the time and did a great deal to set apart the iMac from everything else that was in the industry at that time. So then the next iteration was just a basic white iMac. And then they came out with some that had some swirls and colors, and this one had flowers on it. It's kind of a funky little variation on a theme. It didn't last for very long, but it was kind of neat. Then we had the new iBook that came out soon afterwards. And a lot of people don't like this design. I love it. I actually have one of these sitting up on one of my bookshelves, but I have the lime green one. It was my wife's iBook. I love the fact that it had a handle. And the handle was also the antenna for the Wi-Fi. It was very durable. It cleans up very well. It looks practically new. There's a few scuffs here and there, but while it certainly wasn't a business computer, it was a very nice personal computer. Very human, very approachable, and a very capable laptop for its time. Then the products started coming out for the pro users, and this was an external screen. Again, using the clear plastic, but this time completely clear. We used to have one of these in our office. I used it a few times, but not very much. We see the beautiful lines curving, and the simplicity of just having this one foot that had enough tension here that allowed you to set the angle of the screen just by pushing on it and achieving the viewing angle that you wanted. Then we have the Cube. Again, another revolutionary shape, or at least way of doing a shape. The box is not revolutionary, but the way it's presented is the clear plastic and the CD slot at the top. I never used one of these. There's a few production problems with them, but overall they're a pretty decent machine. Again, some people loved it, other people did not. So here's what it looked like on the inside. You turned it upside down and pulled everything up from the bottom, and it was all enclosed in a nice metal frame. Very elegant design. One of the curses of computers back then was that they were very difficult to open up and work on, even for Macs. As these new designs came about, the ease of use increased dramatically when it came to actually opening them up and working on them. So these are some speakers. Here are two versions of the mouse. This one was just completely clear, and you can see some of the workings in the black inside. And then this was clear with a white, like lozenge shape in the center. I like this mouse a lot. I used it quite a bit. Got rid of a lot of the complications of the mouse. And these two little grippy things on the side were actually buttons that you could squeeze and get a different interaction. This is a bass subwoofer for the speaker system. Very beautiful and organic. You can tell by this time that pretty much most of the products had gone to clear plastic. And here is the first Pro Mac. I believe this was a G3. The G3 refers to the type of chip that is driving the computer. So we stick with the clear plastic, and then we accent it with a light gray, kind of silver look. trying to remember if I ever worked on this. I don't believe I ever used this one. Then they came out with a new design for the PowerBooks. Before this, they had been black plastic and some really beautiful designs in that. But with this one, they went with the all-metal enclosure. Here's some other views of it from the top and the front. It was fairly thick, specifically by today's standards, but very simple. Actually had the trackpad and the mouse button as separate. And then we have another great revolution, the iPod. There were other MP3 players around before this, quite a bit, actually, but this was the first one that made it easy to transfer your music, find your music, play your music. Ridiculously thick by today's standards, but it actually had a small hard drive that actually spun a disk inside that stored all of your music. So there was only so much you can do with that as far as shrinking it in size. We had a click wheel here that you ran your finger around this way to scroll on the menu. And then when you found what you wanted, you could click these buttons and activate it. It was a black and white screen. This is a tool that is used, I'm not exactly sure how. I believe this is probably part of the iPod case, and then this is a tool that goes inside of it. I haven't read up on exactly what that is. Then we had the next iteration of the iMac. I always wanted to own one of these, but I never did. It wasn't around for very long, but the computer was in this base, and the CD tray was here, in a nice chrome Apple logo. And then the screen could tilt this way and that way, and it has a very personable look. I think it is a great iteration on the Mac, because when it first came out in 1984, it kind of had a human face design to it with a chin and a screen, and it was very approachable. And I think this design captures that same spirit. But I never did own one of these. So here it is from the side. You can see it has this arm, which again, you just had to move with your hand and it stayed in position. Now this is the EMAC, which was used for educational institutions, and it was basically a iteration on the original iMac. I have actually done a video taking one of these EMACs apart. My mother-in-law used to own one. It is very, very heavy, and did not really have a handle on it, so it was very difficult to operate. Here we have the next version of the iPod, which moved the buttons up here to the top and kept the click wheel, and maybe a little bit thinner, but not by much. I believe these are more MacBooks. Yeah, here they are open. These are probably the PowerBooks. You had the small size and the large size. This giving you stereo speakers. believe this one was like 17 or 18 inches. This was a monster. Here's some of the parts, aluminum milled and extruded parts that are used to make the laptop. I think here's all the different sandwiched layers. The screen and the hinge and the spring for the hinge, and then the electronic components and the batteries and everything in there. This is I believe they call it an iSight camera. And then this is the G5 Power Mac. I owned one of these. Used it for quite a long time. I don't know if I had it when I started this channel. I don't believe I did. No, I didn't. Because I started out using the camera that was built into my iMac. But right before I started my channel, this is the computer that I used. This design stayed around for a very long time. Solid metal, very durable, and came in a number of configurations over the years. It was very easy to work on. You had this whole side panel, just came right off, and you could access the entire inside. Here you can see some of the different versions over the years, because they kept the same frame, I don't know, 5 years maybe? And they just continually changed how the computer components went inside. Here's the keyboard that came with it. You can see we have kind of shifted away from the clear plastic and we're moving more into the solid aluminum and titanium. But the keyboard still has a little bit of clear plastic. And this is the next iBook. And we've switched from clear plastic and colorful plastic to just white plastic. I own one of these through my work. I used this in website testing and several other applications where I needed a laptop. Here we have the chargers. These are international adapters. No, these aren't adapters. These are just international plugs. And then the iPod changes significantly. It becomes rounder. And the buttons are included on the click wheel. And we get some bright colors. And this time we're bringing the colors, but instead of being plastic, it is actually the aluminum. It's the metal itself that is colored. Here we have one that has a clip adapter and one that has a lanyard adapter. The first earbuds. I don't know if they called them earbuds or what they called them back then. And here we have the new iteration of the external screen. Again, going with the all-metal to fit with the Pro line of Macs. I haven't read up as to why the space shuttle is on here, but I don't think Apple designed that. And then we have another iteration of the iPod. And then we have the new iMac, going from the swivel screen to just a simple monitor with a stand. I was kind of disappointed because it kind of took away some of the personality. But over the years, it's kind of grown on me a little bit, even though it basically looks like it's just a monitor. Again, ridiculously thick by today's standards. We see it from several different angles. And here we have some of the machinery that's used to make the iMac. These are kind of cute little socks, like knitted cases that covered your iPod. Again, coming in some nice bright colors. Here we have the, I can't remember what they called this. Maybe the mini iPod? Not quite sure. I don't remember seeing it very much. I don't think it was the Nano, but maybe it might be. Again, some more machinery. Another regular iPod. Getting a little bit thinner. And I believe this was a speaker. It was a dock that you put the iPod in, and Apple created a speaker system for a little while. Here's what it looked like. It didn't last very long. Here's what it looked like from the side. Another version of the iMac, the iBook, again with the plastic. This may be the version that I own. The iPod starts to change shape and get smaller. And here is the iPod Nano with a clip specifically just to play music. There's no screen or anything like that. Another version of the earbuds. And then we have the first iPhone. Round and chunky. Looks like a kid who's entered into teenage years and kind of hasn't lost the baby fat yet, but is still kind of put on weight a bit. Will slim down when they get older. I believe these are test versions of the first iPhone. I believe these are more prototypes, or at least showing some of the internal workings of the first iPhone. Going from solid block to all the different polishings and fittings. That one looks quite beat up. I don't know the story behind that one yet. Here we have the earbuds that came out with the iPhone and a mold used to make them. And then the iMac grows up as well. It gets the aluminum treatment like the Pro computers. And here's the housing of the screen. And I believe what this is saying is the piece of metal that was cut out of the screen was used to make two keyboards. Which is kind of neat. I love this keyboard. I used it quite a bit. Here we have the iPod mini, kind of a shrunk down version of the iPod. And then the full version that looks more like an iPhone. And this is one of the first, I think this is the first iPod I bought. I may have had one before that, but I'm not sure, because I bought my children some before this one, but I think this is the first one that I got for myself. And then we still had the massive iPod that held tons and tons of songs. 160 gigabytes. And here we have what I believe is the first MacBook Air, coming down to a very thin profile. We have the white iPhone. Here it is showing it how it was opened. We still have this rounded kind of lozenge look to the side of it. We have, I guess this is showing how they made the bevel. Probably the front and the back. I'm not quite sure. And then the iPod is quite a bit thinner. And then we have a new iMac, I believe. Or is this just a regular monitor? I'm not quite sure. I think this is an iMac, because it has the ventilation here at the bottom. We have another laptop. I'm not quite sure if this is a MacBook or a PowerBook. Here's all the different components that go into it. Some more iPod products. We have the mouse and the trackpad and the keyboard. The mouse changes, the buttons disappear completely, and you can program right and left buttons onto the actual surface to track your fingers. I don't remember this one. I believe this is probably another MacBook or iBook, but I don't remember the rounded edges. I own one of these. I have it up on the shelf. It is the bright green one. That was a neat one to have. I used it for exercising. And here's the iPad. Definitely owned the first generation of those. And then the iPhone goes square. We've lost the rounded edges and the rounded back. And we just have the squared off iconic look of the iPhone now. And these are different tools that are used to refine the look of the, I assume, the iPhone. Here's testing the glass that covers the front. And here's some colorful little bumpers that you can get for the edge. And then we have the Mac Mini. My parents own a Mac Mini. I still use it today. I think this is showing the top and the bottom, how it's made. Some of the tools used to create the different shapes. It looks very violent. Another very small iPod, this time with a screen. And kind of the precursor to the Apple Watch, because people would create straps that could put this onto the wrist and they could use it as a watch. The iPod still has kind of a rounded look to it. The Apple TV, I've never owned one of these. We don't have a TV, and we never had really an HD TV even when we did, so it never made much sense to own one of these. This is the remote control that goes with it. And here we have another MacBook Air. And then I guess this is the second generation of the iPad got significantly thinner. I like this photo. I had a red case on my iPad, and it ended up looking pretty much like that after you'd used it for a while. Got a nice look to the leather. More laptops. We have the MagSafe charger that would break off if stress was put onto it and not pull the computer off the table. I think everybody owns a version of these earbuds. I use them when I exercise. Here we have some more tools for making them. Another version of the iPod mini, I guess, I'm not sure. I think there's a red version of this that I own. And then we have the iMac with a very thin edge. And this is the iMac that I use right now. Edit all my videos. Very, very thin. Basically kind of like a laptop just put into a screen. Another version of the iPhone. This time it came in gold. Some of the tools in use. Leather covers. How the leather cover is made. Some of the kind of plastic cover colors that it could come in. Another version of the iPad. This is the iPad 2, I believe, and with the different color cases or covers. Then we have the new Mac Pro. It's what I use at work. Beautiful little machine that's significantly reduced in size from the big bulky G5 tower I showed you way back. This is what replaced it. So you can tell they used that big metal tower for quite a long time. But this one now sits on your desk very nicely. Looks beautiful. Very simplistic in its appearance, but to me it looks like a minimalist work of art. Here we have it from just a big hunk of metal being extruded, polished some more, and then made into the black color. More iPhones, thinner and thinner. You can tell the design is really starting to be refined. And then we have the Apple Watch, which I'm actually wearing right now, with the different bands that it comes with. You can tell, because it's the first generation of a product, I love this, that this profile is very reminiscent of the first iPhones that came out. Kind of chunky and rounded edges. And this is basically the watch I'm wearing now with the band. I can't wait to see where the Apple Watch goes, how much thinner it can get, and how much more powerful. Because it is a beautiful piece of technology to wear on your wrist. Here's some more tools. I believe this is a tool underwater and using the water to cool. And then I'm not sure what that is. I think it's another edge of something. Probably the Apple Watch, since we're still on the Apple Watch here. Beautiful lines. I believe this is making the gold case. the gold clasp. Some of the more high-end versions of the Apple Watch. We have the MacBook Air that you can get in gold. The new PowerBooks. The iPad Pro with the cover that became a keyboard. And then we finish up with the Apple Pencil, which goes with the iPad Pro. And that is the last thing on the book. You have in the back this guide to all the different products. So you can have this out to the side of the book and refer to some commentary on what it is you're actually reading. I haven't gone through this yet. So some of the things I didn't know what they were, no doubt are explained in here. So, well, we did end up going through the whole thing. So I'm very happy to have this. It complements another book that I have that was not made by Apple. It was made by another company, but it documents the industrial design of Apple from its very beginnings all the way through to right before the new iMac. So this kind of picks up where that book left off and continues on. And I actually made a video of that book as well. And I'll put a link to it in the description so you can use both videos to kind of follow the industrial design of Apple through time. Well, thank you for watching. I found this very interesting. I love this book, but I'm a designer. I love this type of thing anyway. So let me know what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. And give this video a like so that more people can see it. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.